My sister stole my identity for an $800,000 fraud. At dinner, I faced her and said, "This is a police report." Her smile vanished instantly. The bank informed me that I owed $623,000 for a mortgage I never signed. It turns out that my sister exploited my name to acquire her dream home. At family dinner, I didn't say anything but handed the police report across the table. Her fork dropped. Every jaw at the table dropped. My world was wrecked with a single phone call. A terrible betrayal that ripped through the very core of my family. I never dreamed that the person I'd looked up to my whole life would be the one to orchestrate such a brutal lie, leaving me to pick up the pieces of a life she'd systematically destroyed. Before everything fell apart, I, Lila Morgan, a 29-year-old nurse from Seattle, had a pretty wonderful existence. Nothing spectacular, but it was satisfying. For 6 years, I worked as a registered nurse in Seattle Grace Hospital's pediatric unit. Even on the most difficult days, aiding sick children feels extremely rewarding. My co-workers were like family, and I had established a reputation as dependable and caring. My little cozy apartment in Ballard was my haven, complete with plants. With so many plants, my friends joked that it was more like a greenhouse than a home. Those green buddies brought me comfort during busy hospital shifts. Then there was my own family. Victor and Eleanor, my parents, raised my sister, Serafina, and myself in the same suburban home. They were excellent people, honest, diligent, and dedicated. Serafina, 3 years my senior, was always the confident one, the achiever, and the one who made friends easily. I was the quiet, studious one who discovered my voice only after college. But there was never any resentment, at least not that I noticed. I was proud of her accomplishments. As adults, we stayed close. Serafina had a successful career in real estate, selling luxury residences. She married Damien Vale, a financial advisor, 5 years ago. They were an attractive pair, always tanned from their regular tropical holidays. Their social media feed was a showcase of controlled perfection. Meanwhile, I stayed single and focused on my profession. Our lives couldn't be more different, but we still got together for coffee and family dinners twice a month. Serafina would occasionally make subtle remarks about my lifestyle or advise investments that I couldn't afford, but I just chalked it up to her wanting the best for me. Serafina and Damien moved into their gorgeous Craftsman home in Queen Anne, one of Seattle's most exclusive districts, 8 months ago. At their housewarming, I felt a tinge of envy as I walked through their perfectly refurbished rooms, complete with Viking equipment and panoramic views. "Someday you'll have this too, sis," she'd added, grabbing my shoulder. "You just need to aim higher." The day everything changed began like any other Tuesday. My phone vibrated as I was assisting Noah, a 7-year-old kid, change his bandages. I usually don't respond during patient treatment, but I was waiting for word regarding my elderly neighbor. "Hello, this is Lila," I said as I stepped into the corridor. "Miss Morgan, this is Marcus Hale from Washington Mutual Bank, and I'm phoning regarding your missed mortgage payments. We've sent multiple letters, and I'm afraid if we don't get this resolved soon, we'll have to start foreclosure procedures." My stomach fell. "I'm sorry. There must have been a mistake. I don't have a mortgage. I rent my apartment." His voice became slightly arrogant. "Miss Morgan, our records show that you took out a $623,000 mortgage in January for a residence on Highland Drive. You paid for the first 3 months, but we have not received anything since April." Highland Drive. This sounded familiar. Wasn't it Serafina's street? "This is a mistake," I repeated, my voice rising. "I've never purchased property. My credit isn't even good enough for a mortgage that size. I'm a nurse, not a surgeon." The application shows an annual income of $192,000 and a credit score of 782 at the time of application. "We have all the documentation, Miss Morgan, including your signature on multiple forms. Perhaps you could come into the branch to review the paperwork." The conversation went on as if nothing had happened. I returned to Noah's room on autopilot, my mind racing. Was there a clerical error? Identity theft? What about the address? That cannot be a coincidence. At the bank, Oliver Kent, the branch manager, laid out a folder of documents that made my stomach sink with each page. Loan application, income verification, credit check authorization, and closing papers, all with what seemed to be my signature. And there it was. Black and white. The property address corresponded to Serafina's new home. "Could I get copies of all of this?" I inquired, my voice remote. "Miss Morgan, if you did not apply for this mortgage, I strongly advise you to contact the police. This appears to be identity theft and possibly fraud." I nodded numbly, but a voice within was screaming, "Not just any identity theft. My sister, My own sister had stolen my identity to purchase her dream home. The days that followed were a flurry of fear, bewilderment, and thorough research. I called in ill to work for the first time in 2 years, unable to concentrate as my personal life unraveled. My flat, which had once been my haven, suddenly felt like a cage in which I wandered ceaselessly, alternating between wrath and confusion. Could there be another explanation? Perhaps Serafina had made a catastrophic administrative mistake. But as I examined the copied documents, my hopeful notion disintegrated. This was deliberate. Someone had painstakingly falsified my signature on several documents. Someone had provided my social security number, birth date, and work history. Someone who knows me well. My first call was to Equifax. The customer service guy seemed bored until I described the matter. Her tone then altered to one of trained pity. "Let me pull up your credit report, Miss Morgan." A keyboard click, followed by a pause. "There are several accounts here that appear to have been opened in the past year. The mortgage is the largest, but there's also a home equity line of credit for $150,000, 3 credit cards with limits between $20,000 and $30,000 each, and a personal loan for $45,000. I went to the doctor. All of these are fraudulent. I didn't open any of them. By the end of the day, I'd contacted all 3 major credit agencies, filed fraud alerts, and discovered that my credit score, which had formerly been a respectable 724, had plunged to 546 as a result of missing mortgage payments and maxed out credit cards I was unaware of. The following morning, I met with Fiona Adler, a financial advisor. "This is definitely identity theft," she acknowledged. "And I must say, it's quite sophisticated. Whoever did this knew exactly what information would be required to pass verification checks." "It was my sister," I added, making the accusation aloud for the first time. "The house is hers. She's living in it right now." Fiona's expression changed from professional worry to real shock. That complicates things. Family fraud is unfortunately common, but it presents unique challenges both legally and emotionally. What should I do? Legally, it's clear you need to file a police report. Without this, banks will not regard you as a victim, rather than a participant. I hesitated. Despite the growing evidence, I still couldn't believe Serafina, my defender and role model, would do this to me. Before reporting to the police, I decided to acquire additional information. A handwriting expert verified the falsified signatures. Then I began looking into Serafina's finances. Through social media and informal discussions, I saw alarming tendencies. Despite their seeming prosperity, Serafina and Damien had been experiencing financial troubles for at least 2 years. Nonetheless, their lifestyle had not changed. If anything, they'd get more ostentatious. My buddy Marissa, who works at a premium vehicle shop, provided the most incriminating evidence. "I probably shouldn't tell you this," Marissa explained over coffee. "But when they ran her credit for financing, it was a mess. Damien ended up paying cash, but I overheard them arguing about it in the parking lot. He said something like, 'We can't keep doing this.' The house was risky enough. The property was damaged. My residence. I also noticed that many credit accounts had been started in my name, all of which were linked to online statements using a small variation of my email address. LilaMorgan883@gmail.com rather than my actual LilaWillMorgan193@gmail.com. It's easy to miss during verification processes, but it's definitely planned. Every new piece of information seemed like an extra weight on my chest, making it difficult to breathe and reject the truth. My sister, whom I had entirely trusted, had stolen my identity to fund a lifestyle she couldn't afford. She had put me under the bus without hesitation, leaving me to cope with the financial and legal consequences when everything eventually failed. After a week of investigation, I couldn't avoid taking the essential action. With a heavy heart, I drove to the Seattle Police Department's Financial Crimes Unit. I sat in a hard plastic chair for over an hour before Detective Nadia Cruz noticed me. "Lila Morgan," she inquired, a woman in her 40s with short brown hair and sad eyes. "My name is Detective Nadia Cruz, and I apologize for the wait. Please follow me." She brought me to a small interview room. "Now I understand you're here to report identity theft." "Yes," I replied, my voice smaller than I had intended. "By my sister." Detective Cruz's expression flickered with surprise, perhaps sympathy, before returning to her professional approach. "I see. That's regrettably more common than you might think. Tell me everything from the beginning." I spent the next 2 hours walking her through the entire story. The bank call, the mortgage I never sought for, the credit cards and loans made in my name, and the home my sister lived in were all obtained using my stolen identity. Miss Morgan, I want to be clear about something. Filing this report means we will investigate fully. And if the evidence supports your claims, your sister could face serious criminal charges. Identity theft and mortgage fraud are felonies. She could go to prison. Are you prepared for that? The query struck me hard. Was I ready to accept responsibility for sending Serafina to prison? To destroy her life, marriage, and career? I recalled our childhood, how she taught me to ride a bike, helped me with homework, and stood up to bullies. I thought of our parents, who would be devastated. But then I remembered my destroyed credit score, the $623,000 debt in my name, and the fundamental breach of trust that I couldn't grasp. Yes, I finally said. I need to protect myself. If she faces consequences for what she did, that's her responsibility, not mine. Detective Cruz responded with a nod. I know this is difficult. We'll handle the investigation with caution, but I can't guarantee secrecy, especially if charges are made. These cases become public record. As I signed the report, my genuine signature, not the forged one, I felt a strange combination of relief and dread. The machinery of justice was now in motion, and I couldn't stop it even if I tried. 2 days later, Detective Cruz called to provide an update. We've validated your suspicions, Miss Morgan. The mortgage application was made online using your personal information, but from an IP address, traceable to your sister's old location. We're also looking into her husband's possible participation. Financial crimes of this nature are rarely conducted by a single person in a household. Damien. I hadn't considered his involvement until now, but he would have known. As a financial advisor, he may have even helped plan the entire scheme. There's more, Detective Cruz added. We've discovered evidence suggesting they were planning to declare bankruptcy in your name once the debts became unmanageable. There are searches from their home computer about bankruptcy laws and identity abandonment. The premeditated nature of their betrayal astounded me. They hadn't stolen my identity out of desperation. They had plotted to completely destroy my financial prospects while safeguarding their own. A week after filing the report, I received the formal police documents, which included a complete dossier outlining the evidence against Serafina and Damien. Bank papers revealing transfers from accounts in my name to their personal accounts, loan applications with fake signatures, and credit card statements showing transactions at locations and restaurants I'd never been to. Sitting at my kitchen table that evening, I looked through each document, carefully underlining the most damaging passages. The cops had done a superb job of constructing an airtight case. According to Detective Cruz, the district attorney was confident in filing charges. Tomorrow was our bi-weekly family supper. Serafina would be there, still convinced that her idea had gone uncovered. She wasn't aware that I had received the foreclosure notice. She had no idea I had spent weeks examining her. She was unaware of the police report, which was now sitting in a manila folder on my counter. As I was getting ready for bed, my phone vibrated with a text from my mother. Looking forward to seeing my girls tomorrow. I'm making your favorite lasagna, love you both. The casual normalcy of it broke something in me. I cried for the first time since the nightmare began. Not just for myself, but for our parents, whose world was about to crumble. I spent nearly an hour deciding what to wear to dinner. It felt significant. I chose a simple navy dress, professional and serious, unlike my typical casual attire, but this was no ordinary dinner. I carefully applied my makeup, determined that Serafina would not notice how deeply she had injured me. I would not offer her satisfaction. As I drove to my parents' house, fond memories of happier family dinners came flooding back. Tonight would be the last of those dinners, at least in the shape I could recognize. After tonight, nothing would be the same. I parked a block away and took a moment to settle myself. As I approached the house, I noticed Serafina's white Range Rover in the driveway. Had that also been a lie? Had it been acquired using fake credit in my name? The comforting aroma of my mother's lasagna greeted me. I pondered turning around and driving home, pretending I was ill. I could confront Serafina discreetly, giving her the opportunity to make amends without public humiliation. But then, I remembered the bankruptcy searches that Detective Cruz mentioned. Serafina and Damien intended to leave me financially devastated while they walked away untouched. They deserved no mercy. I rang the doorbell. The weight of the police report in my backpack felt like a brick. Lila, my mother said, grinning as she opened the door. She grabbed me into a hug. You look beautiful, but so serious. Is everything okay at the hospital? Everything's fine, Mom, I said, returning her hug. Just tired from a long week. Inside, my father was sitting in his customary seat, a recliner with a glass of red wine. There's my girl. Want some wine? It's that Oregon Pinot you like. Thanks, Dad. That would be nice. Serafina's laugh, as brilliant and melodious as ever, echoed through the kitchen. She emerged in the doorway wearing an expensive-looking cream top and tailored slacks, her blonde hair neatly dressed and her smile radiant. "Lila, finally, I was telling Mom about this incredible patient success story I heard from Dr. Bennett at the club. You should talk to him about potential positions in his practice. The benefits are amazing." The audacity stunned me. Here she was, having stolen my identity and offered job advice as if she cared about my well-being. I forced a smile. "I'm happy where I am, thanks." If she detected my coolness, she didn't show it. Dinner continued with painful normality. Dad sliced steak. Mom served lasagna. Julian spoke about his new project. The children chattered. Serafina masterfully evaded any concerns regarding their finances, usually shifting the focus to someone else's affairs. "Lila, you're quiet tonight," my father remarked as we approached the end of the main course. "Have a rough week?" I carefully set down my fork. "You could say that." "Anything you want to talk about?" Mom said, her brow furrowing. Serafina stepped in before I could react. "Oh Mom, leave her alone. Not everyone needs to process everything out loud like me." She giggled and flipped her hair. "Some people just need to mull things over privately." The irony was almost overwhelming. Serafina, who had committed crimes that would soon be made public, was now arguing for my privacy. "Actually," I began, immediately meeting my sister's eyes, "there is something I need to discuss with all of you." Serafina's countenance flickered with uneasiness before returning to her usual confident smile. "Sounds serious. Let's at least have dessert first. I brought that chocolate mousse cake from Dahlia that you love, Lila." "That can wait," I replied firmly. The table went silent. Even the children sensed the sudden stress. "Julian, why don't you take the children into the living room?" my mother said, her sense of family drama finely honed. After the kids were settled, I dug inside my backpack and took out the manila folder. My heart beat so loudly that I was sure everyone could hear it. Serafina's gaze remained locked on the folder, her grin wavering. "What's that, honey?" my father inquired. I took a deep breath. The moment had arrived. There was no turning back. "This," I continued, resting my palm on the folder, "is a police report." The stillness lengthened. My mom's eyes widened. My father placed his wine glass gently. Damien, who had been mostly silent, was attentive, his gaze darting between the folder and Serafina. "A police report?" my mother repeated. "Lila, what happened? Are you all right?" "I'm not all right, Mom. I've been the victim of a crime." I moved the folder across the table toward Serafina, looking directly at her. "Identity theft and fraud, specifically." Serafina did not touch the files. Her face had become very still, with dynamic expressions frozen. "What are you talking about?" she inquired, her tone unusually high. "Open it," I replied calmly. Damien put his hand on Serafina's arm. "Maybe we should discuss this privately, Serafina." "There's nothing to discuss," she said hurriedly, still not touching the folder. "Lila's obviously confused about something." My father, who was never one for tension, attempted to lighten the situation. "Is this a joke, girls?" "No, Dad." I reached across the table and opened up the folder, displaying the first page of the police report with official letterhead and case number. 2 weeks ago, I received a call from Washington Mutual Bank about missed mortgage payments on a $623,000 loan I never took out for a house I've never owned at 4872 Highland Drive. My mother gasped gently. "But that's Serafina and Damien's address." I finished for her. The dream house they'd been showing off to everyone for months was purchased through a mortgage fraudulently obtained in my name, along with a home equity line of credit, 3 credit cards, and a personal loan. All maxed out, all in default. All eyes shifted to Serafina, whose face had lost its color. Everyone remained silent for some seconds. Serafina gave a brittle, strained laugh. "This is ridiculous. There's obviously been some kind of mistake, a bank error or—" "The police don't think so," I replied. "Neither does the handwriting expert who confirmed the forged signatures. Neither does the IP address evidence showing the mortgage application was submitted from your old condo." Damien abruptly got up. "We should leave, Serafina. We don't have to hear these accusations." My father found his voice, deep and shaking with rage. "Sit down, Damien. Both of you need to explain what the hell is going on." Serafina's mood abruptly changed. The deer headlights appear to have fled, replaced by cold calculation. "Fine. You want an explanation? We hit a rough patch. Damien's firm collapsed when his partner embezzled funds. My commissions dried up during the market correction. We were about to lose everything we'd worked for. So, you decided to steal my identity? I questioned incredulously. To saddle me with over $800,000 in debt I knew nothing about? It was supposed to be temporary, Serafina said, her voice rising. Once the market recovered, once Damien's new clients came through, we were going to refinance everything properly. That's a lie, I replied gently. The police found your searches about declaring bankruptcy in my name. You were never going to make this right. You were planning to destroy my financial future to save yourselves. My mother began crying gently. My father's cheeks had turned an alarming red. Serafina, he replied, his voice unsettlingly quiet. Tell me this isn't true. Tell me you didn't do this to your sister. Serafina seems to be on the verge of another denial, then her shoulders slumped. We were desperate. You don't understand what it's like having achieved a certain lifestyle, certain status, and then watching it all slip away. People were counting on us to be successful, clients, friends, family, everyone. I was counting on you to be my sister, I murmured, my voice breaking. To love me, not betray me. Damien instantly turned against Serafina. I told you this would blow up in our faces. I told you we should have found another way. There was no other way, Serafina exclaimed back. Your brilliant investment strategies lost us everything. What was I supposed to do? Do not commit felony fraud using your sister's identity, Damien responded. Do you have any idea what this means? We could go to prison, Serafina. My parents were astonished by this interaction. My father then stood up, his hands shaking. Get out. Both of you. Get out of my house. Dad, please, Serafina said, tears welling up in her eyes. I couldn't tell whether it was sincere or calculated. You have to understand. I understand perfectly, he said, cutting her short. You stole from your sister. You lied to all of us. You were willing to destroy Lila's life to maintain your facade. I don't even recognize you anymore. My mother, still in tears, glanced at Serafina, devastated. How could you do this after everything we taught you about honesty, about family? What happened to you, Serafina? Nothing happened to me, Mom, Serafina replied, her defiance returning. I just refuse to fail. Unlike the rest of this family, I have ambition. I have standards. Do you think I wanted to end up like Lila, living in a tiny apartment with plants as my only companions? Her nonchalant cruelty shocked me. Is that what you really think of my life? That it's some kind of failure because I don't have a mansion or a luxury car? You could have had more, Serafina said furiously. You're smart enough, but you've always settled for less. Honestly, it's not like you were even using your good credit score for anything important. Damien grabbed her arm. Enough, Serafina. We're leaving now. He turned to me, his face a mix of rage and panic. This isn't over, Lila. You have no idea what you've done by filing that report. I know exactly what I've done, I said calmly. I've protected myself from criminals. That's what you both are, criminals. And now you'll face the consequences. As they prepared to go, my mother screamed out for Serafina. The police. Will they arrest you? Serafina halted at the door. For a brief time her facade slipped, and I saw genuine dread in her eyes. I don't know, Mom. Probably. After they went, the three of us sat in startled silence. My father poured himself another glass of wine, his hands trembling. My mother wiped her tears with a napkin, appearing much older than her years. I should have seen it, she said finally. All those extravagant purchases. The house we knew they couldn't afford. I just thought they were being irresponsible with their money. Not this. None of us saw it, I replied, grabbing for her hand. I never imagined Serafina capable of something like this. Not to a stranger, and certainly not to me. My father looked at the police report, which was still open on the table. What happens now? The district attorney will decide whether to press charges. Given the evidence, Detective Cruz thinks it's almost certain. Serafina and Damien will be arrested, probably within the week. And the debts? My father, the ever-present accountant, inquired. The mortgage, the credit cards? I'm working with the banks to clear my name. It's a long process, but the police report helps establish that I'm the victim, not a willing participant. My credit is still destroyed, at least for now. We sat together for several hours that night, contemplating the shock, betrayal, and uncertain future. My brother Julian returned from putting his children to bed, and we discussed everything. His first incredulity turned to outrage on my behalf. "I'll testify against her if necessary," he declared vehemently. "What she did to you is unforgivable." Like I drove home that night, I felt hollowed out, like if something important had been removed from my chest. I had done all possible to protect myself, but there was no satisfaction, only anguish for the sister I thought I knew and the family that would never be the same. The immediate aftermath of that fateful supper felt like scenes from someone else's life, as if I were appearing in a television drama without auditioning. 3 days after the confrontation, Detective Cruz contacted. Arrest warrants have been issued for both Serafina and Damien. They were taken into custody at their home, my home, according to the fraudulent mortgage, and charged with multiple felonies: identity theft, fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. Their arrests generated local headlines. The headline read, "Prominent Seattle realtor and financial advisor accused with identity theft scheme." The casualty was Serafina's sister, according to the report, although my name was mercifully not revealed. Nonetheless, anyone who knew our family could quickly figure it out. My phone was continuously buzzing with messages from anxious friends, distant relatives, and even former classmates. I turned it off, unable to bear the well-intended but intrusive questions. My parents retreated into a state of shock and embarrassment. Dad stopped attending his weekly golf games because he couldn't face pals who had definitely seen the news. Mom has taken a leave of absence from teaching. Their social network, which had grown over decades, suddenly felt dangerous. "Everyone must be talking about us," Mom stated during one of my visits, as she wondered what went wrong with Serafina. "You didn't go wrong," I told her. A portion of me wondered the same thing. Were there symptoms of Serafina's moral flexibility that we had all overlooked or forgiven over the years? My family's pressure to withdraw the charges began subtly, but grew stronger as the truth of Serafina's condition became clearer. She and Damien had been released on bond but had to relinquish their passports. Their assets were frozen, including the house, which the bank was now attempting to seize. "She made a terrible mistake," my mother pleaded over the phone one evening. "But she's still your sister, still our daughter. Couldn't you ask the district attorney to reduce the charges? Maybe some kind of probation instead of prison." "Mom, she stole my identity. She planned to declare bankruptcy in my name. Do you understand what that would have done to me? I wouldn't have been able to rent an apartment, get a car loan, maybe even keep my job if it required a security clearance. She was willing to destroy my life." "I know, honey. What she did was inexcusable, but she has 2 young children. Think about your niece and nephew growing up without their mother. That was the hardest part. Ilara and Rowan, ages 5 and 7, are completely innocent in this situation. I adored those youngsters. They now risk losing their parents to incarceration as a result of my police report." My determination weakened. Marissa helped me recover perspective on a much-needed night out. "Listen to me," she said, firmly putting down her vodka tonic. "Serafina chose to commit many felonies, to victimize her own sister, and to endanger her children by engaging in criminal behavior. None of this is your fault. The repercussions are hers to face, not yours to ease. But your parents are doing what parents do, attempting to protect their child. But they are protecting the wrong child in this circumstance. You are the victim here, Lila, and don't let them make you feel bad for sticking up for yourself." She was correct, of course. When I visited with the district attorney the next week, I made it clear that I had no desire to drop or reduce the charges. "Miss Morgan, I want to commend your resolve," Prosecutor Clara Wu said. "Many identity theft cases involving family members never make it to court because victims withdraw under family pressure. But these crimes have real consequences, and they merit real punishment." The judicial proceedings progressed painfully slowly. Throughout it all, I had to keep working, paying my expenses, and trying to rebuild my broken credit. I'll never forget the day Serafina and Damien eventually agreed to a plea deal, 9 months after our showdown. I waited in the courtroom, seeing my sister, who was slimmer now and had replaced her fancy clothes with a modest blue suit, stand before the judge. "Serafina Vale, you have pleaded guilty to 1 count of identity theft, 1 count of fraud, and 1 count of conspiracy," according to the judge. "Before I pronounce sentence, do you wish to make a statement?" Serafina turned slightly to look at me in the gallery. For a brief time I caught a glimpse of my childhood sister, vulnerable, human, and flawed. "I want to apologize to my sister," she replied, her voice calm but soft. "What I did was unforgivable. I betrayed your trust in the worst possible way, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. I was selfish and desperate and terrified of failure, But that's no excuse for hurting the person who has always supported me and believed in me. I'm so sorry, Lila. The judge sentenced Serafina to 18 months in federal prison, while Damien received 12 months. Both were sentenced to 3 years of supervised release and ordered to pay full restitution. As Serafina was brought away, our gazes met one more time. There was so much unspoken between us, so much damage that may never be mended. I wasn't sure whether I could ever forgive her. But in that moment, I recognized the complexities of my emotions, anger and betrayal interwoven with recollections of shared childhood, of love that had been genuine despite everything that had happened since. The weeks after the sentencing were a jumble of practical issues. The bank foreclosed on the house and sold it at auction. I worked with credit agencies to have the bogus accounts removed from my record, which was a painstakingly tedious process. My relationship with my parents stayed strained. They paid Serafina regular visits, but rarely mentioned them to me. We attempted to retain a sense of family connection, but our interactions were brief, avoiding the elephant in the room. Thanksgiving passed, and it was the first time in my recall that there was no entire family gathering. Christmas was likewise split. Our family's decades-long traditions, as well as our trust, had been shattered. The day the bank finally erased the false mortgage from my credit report was like coming out of a long, dark cave. My credit score was steadily recovering. I'd relocated to a new apartment, hoping for a fresh start away from the memories of treachery. As winter transitioned into spring, I got an unexpected letter. Not from Serafina, who had repeatedly written with apologies I couldn't accept, but from my niece Alara. In shaky handwriting on pink paper she wrote, "Dear Aunt Lila, I miss you a lot. Grandma says you're mad at Mommy because she did something bad. I'm sometimes mad at Mommy too. Like when she wouldn't let me have 2 desserts. But I still love her. Do you still love her? Can you come see me in Rowan? We have a new apartment, but it's small and doesn't have a garden like the big house. Love, Ilara." Tears welled up in my eyes as I saw a child's innocence, unable to comprehend the gravity of what had occurred. Regardless of my feelings toward Serafina, Ilara and Rowan were innocent victims of their parents' sins. They deserved an aunt who loved them, even if that affection had to be kept aside from their mother's treachery. That evening I called my parents and asked if I might see the kids. The relief in my mother's voice was evident. "They ask about you all the time," she continued. "They would love to see you." My weekend visit with my niece and nephew was the first hesitant step toward mending. Not forgiveness precisely, but an acknowledgement that familial relationships, especially when severely wounded, do not simply vanish. They evolve, necessitating new boundaries, expectations, and definitions of trust. 6 months after Serafina began serving her term, the foreclosure sign was removed from the front of the Highland Drive house. Another family moved in, unknowing of the events that had occurred within those walls. I drove past on occasion, experiencing an odd mix of emotions. Not remorse or envy, but something more complicated. The house that had signified my sister's treachery was now simply a house, inhabited by people who had no relation to our family's grief. My credit score, while not totally repaired, had returned to the fair level. The bogus accounts had been removed. I'd settled into my new apartment, which was smaller than my previous one, but in a more secure building with a protected mailbox. The paranoia stayed, a regular companion I was learning to cope with. My weekly therapy appointments with Dr. Iris Lang had become an essential component of my healing. Family betrayal creates a unique kind of trauma, Dr. Lang stated. The people we expect to protect us become the source of harm. It fundamentally challenges our ability to trust. "Will I ever trust anyone again?" I asked, partly jokingly. "You'll trust differently," she'd said, more thoughtfully and deliberately. "That's not necessarily a bad thing." She was correct. I'd grown more careful, more vigilant in analyzing financial accounts, and more selective about who I let into my inner circle. But I hadn't completely withdrawn from life, as had been my concern in those dismal early days. My connection with my parents was slowly improving, but it would never be the same again. The strain of split loyalties, their natural impulse to support Serafina versus my justifiable need for acceptance as the victim, created an underlying tension. But we were all trying. Sunday dinners had resumed, but less regularly and with a cautious avoidance of certain issues. "Your father and I visited Serafina yesterday," my mother said during one of these dinners, keeping a close eye on my expression. "How is she?" I inquired, shocked by my own real interest. "Managing. Teaching an ESL class to other inmates. She asked about you." I nodded but gave no response. I still wasn't ready to see Serafina, to confront her across a prison table and hear more apologies. Maybe someday. but not now. My father, who had been relatively silent about Serafina for months, suddenly spoke up. She's different in there. Humbled, I think. I think she's finally understanding the magnitude of what she did to you. It was the first time he explicitly acknowledged me as the sufferer, rather than Serafina's suffering. The validation, though long overdue, meant more than I could say. Thank you for saying that, Dad, I replied quietly. Extended family provided the most unexpected help. My cousin Nadia, with whom I had never been particularly close, reached out. I never told anyone in the family, she informed me as she drank coffee. But my college roommate stole my identity, opened credit cards, ran up thousands in debt. I know something about what you've been through. What did you do? I inquired. Press charges just like you. Lost friends who thought I was overreacting. Never regretted it for a minute. Finding this community of understanding, other identity theft victims who fully understood the violation I had endured, became a vital part of my healing. I joined an online support group and later began attending in-person meetings of a financial crime survivors network. There I encountered people from all walks of life whose tales mirrored mine. The shock of discovery. The time-consuming process of clearing their names. The destroyed relationships with those who couldn't understand why they wouldn't just forgive and move on. In their presence, I was not required to explain or defend my feelings. They already knew. Through this network, I was able to contact with a charity group that assists victims of identity theft. After taking advantage of their resources, I started volunteering, utilizing my own expertise to help others navigate the maze of systems, credit bureaus, law enforcement, financial institutions. You have a gift for this, Celine, the director of the group, told me. You're compassionate without sugarcoating the reality of what they're facing. This effort brought meaning to my pain by translating a traumatic personal experience into information that could benefit others. I couldn't reverse what Serafina had done, but I could utilize it to make someone else's path less lonely and more manageable. Moving to my new apartment was not only a practical requirement, but it also served as a symbolic new beginning. I filled it with plants as usual, but also with new furnishings that had little resemblance to my life before betrayal. I set up a tiny home office with a locking file cabinet, not because I expected another family member to take my identity, but because the experience showed me the importance of careful security. When Serafina had been detained for about a year, I received a letter that stood out among her earlier attempts at communication. Unlike her previous apologies, this one addressed the specific hurt she had caused me. I've been working with a therapist here, she announced. She's helping me understand that true accountability entails recognizing not only that I did something wrong, but also how my actions hurt you. I stole more than your identity, Lila. I stole your sense of security, your trust in family, and your faith in my love for you. I can't repair the damage, but I want you to know that I see it clearly now. I'm not asking for forgiveness, or even a response. I simply want you to know that I understand what I did, and I'll live with that knowledge for the rest of my life. I did not react right away, but I saved the letter and read it from time to time. The acknowledgement of specific harms felt more sincere, comprehensive, and conscious than her earlier general apologies. Around this time, I made a decision that startled even myself. Using part of the reparation money that had finally began to arrive from Serafina and Damien's seized assets, I made a deposit on a little house with a large yard, ideal for an expanding garden. The irony was not lost on me. My sister's transgression eventually resulted to me acquiring the home she had fraudulently claimed in my name. The day I signed the legal mortgage papers, a time that should have been entirely joyful, I felt an unexpected surge of emotion. Sitting in the loan officer's office, studying documents that were strikingly identical to those forgeries in my name, I felt a strange circle closing. "Is everything all right, Miss Morgan?" the loan officer said. "Yes," I said, signing my real name on a loan I had chosen for a house I could afford. "Everything is fine, better than fine actually." Taking ownership of my new home was a strong act of reclamation. I painted my walls in colors I liked, started a vegetable garden, and invited friends to a housewarming party, my first true celebration since the identity theft discovery. Marissa brought champagne and a doormat that said, "Not today, identity thieves." Dark comedy made me laugh despite myself. My parents also visited, bringing a houseplant and awkward well wishes. They were striving to support this new chapter while maintaining their friendship with Serafina. "It's a lovely home, Lila," my mother exclaimed, holding me warmly. "We're so proud of you." "For buying a house?" I inquired. "For everything," my father explained. "For how you've handled all of this with dignity and strength. It wasn't completely mending. That would take years longer, if it ever arrived. But acknowledgement was important. 2 weeks after my housewarming, I finally did something I had been thinking about for months. I drove to the federal penitentiary institution where Serafina was serving her term and put my name on her visitor list. I wasn't ready to see her yet, but I wanted the choice there if and when the time came. As I continue to rebuild my life, I've realized that healing is a journey, not a destination. Some days I feel strong and forward-looking. Others experience the betrayal as fresh and intense. Throughout my trip, I've learned to accept both realities. What happened between my sister and me is a narrative with no clear finale or ideal resolution. Once betrayed, family relationships can never be fully rebuilt. However, they can evolve into something new, perhaps more honest, with clearly defined boundaries and carefully restored trust. I'm not sure if Serafina and I will ever restore anything approximating our prior intimacy. I'm not sure whether I'll ever totally trust her again. But I'm confident that I've weathered the worst betrayal I can conceive, and I've grown stronger, wiser, and more self-sufficient than before. If there's one takeaway from all of this, it's that trust should be viewed as a valuable resource, given wisely, guarded appropriately, and removed when necessary for self-protection. Love and trust are not the same thing, which I had never completely understood until today. I can love my sister while realizing that she has broken my trust in ways that may never be restored. This event taught me that there are and should be boundaries to family loyalty. Standing up for yourself, even when it means going against others you care about, is not selfish, but rather vital. If forgiveness is granted, it must follow accountability rather than replace it. I am continuously creating my story and figuring out how to move forward. But I know this. I will not be a victim in silence. I refuse to give up my financial future to protect someone who has not protected me. I refuse to accept betrayal as the cost of family harmony, and in those refusals, I found my strength. How about you? Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely? How did you manage it? And what boundaries did you set afterward? I would love to hear your stories in the comments section below. If this testimony made you feel less alone in your own experience with family betrayal, please like it and subscribe to my channel for more real-life experiences of perseverance and recovery. Share with someone who may be dealing with similar challenges. Knowing that others have walked the same arduous route can make a huge difference. Thank you for hearing my story. Remember, protecting yourself is not selfish. It is crucial for survival and eventual recovery. Sitting in the loan officer's office, studying documents that were strikingly identical to those forgeries in my name, I felt a strange circle closing. "Is everything all right, Miss Morgan?" the loan officer said. "Yes," I said, signing my real name on a loan I had chosen for a house I could afford. "Everything is fine. Better than fine, actually." Taking ownership of my new home was a strong act of reclamation. I painted my walls in colors I liked, started a vegetable garden, and invited friends to a housewarming party, my first true celebration since the identity theft discovery. Marissa brought champagne and a doormat that said, "Not today." Identity thieves. Dark comedy made me laugh despite myself. My parents also visited, bringing a houseplant and awkward well wishes. They were striving to support this new chapter while maintaining their friendship with Serafina. "It's a lovely home, Lila," my mother exclaimed, holding me warmly. "We're so proud of you." "For buying a house?" I inquired. "For everything," my father explained. "For how you've handled all of this with dignity and strength. It wasn't completely mending. That would take years longer, if it ever arrived. But acknowledgement was important." 2 weeks after my housewarming, I finally did something I had been thinking about for months. I drove to the federal penitentiary institution where Serafina was serving her term and put my name on her visitor list. I wasn't ready to see her yet, but I wanted the choice there if and when the time came. As I continue to rebuild my life, I've realized that healing is a journey, not a destination. Some days I feel strong and forward-looking. Others experience the betrayal as fresh and intense. Throughout my trip, I've learned to accept both realities. What happened between my sister and me is a narrative with no clear finale or ideal resolution. Once betrayed, family relationships can never be fully rebuilt. However, they can evolve into something new, perhaps more honest, with clearly defined boundaries and carefully restored trust. I'm not sure if Serafina and I will ever restore anything approximating our prior intimacy. I'm not sure whether I'll ever totally trust her again. But I'm confident that I've weathered the worst betrayal I can conceive. And I've grown stronger, wiser, and more self-sufficient than before. If there's one takeaway from all of this, it's that trust should be viewed as a valuable resource, given wisely, guarded appropriately, and removed when necessary for self-protection. Love and trust are not the same thing, which I had never completely understood until today. I can love my sister while realizing that she has broken my trust in ways that may never be restored. This event taught me that there are and should be boundaries to family loyalty. Standing up for yourself, even when it means going against others you care about, is not selfish, but rather vital. If forgiveness is granted, it must follow accountability rather than replace it. I am continuously creating my story and figuring out how to move forward. But I know this. I will not be a victim in silence. I refuse to give up my financial future to protect someone who has not protected me. I refuse to accept betrayal as the cost of family harmony, and in those refusals, I found my strength. How about you? Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely? How did you manage it? And what boundaries did you set afterward? I would love to hear your stories in the comments section below. If this testimony made you feel less alone in your own experience with family betrayal, please like it and subscribe to my channel for more real-life experiences of perseverance and recovery. Share with someone who may be dealing with similar challenges. Knowing that others have walked the same arduous route can make a huge difference.